Recording live from the virtual Lucky Number 7 Lounge, located across time and space through the wonders of the World Wide Web, this is Dine, Drink, Vegas, the podcast for everybody stuck at home who wishes they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. And welcome to episode 30, The Sweet Life at Vdara, or as Bill and I call it, the cursed episode, because this is our, fifth attempt to do this. In this episode, we're going to talk about my wife and I's trip to Vdara. We're going to cover some Vegas news that Bill and I think is important. And of course, we're going to talk about the drink of the day. But before we can do any of that, we have to welcome the Alabama Slammer, the king of comps, the leader in the luxury lounge, the founder of Dine, Drink, Travel. Of course, I mean my good buddy, Bill. Bill, how are you, sir?
I'm very confused, John. We seem to be actually podcasting. Can you verify that that's the thing that we're doing right now?
Well, I hope so. So listeners, this episode was originally supposed to be somewhere around, I guess our last episode was November 24th. So 2 weeks after that, I got Super Ebola cancer AIDS or strep throat, whichever one it was, and was out of commission for a while. And then we've tried to record once or twice since, and we've had every technical glitch known to humanity. We were even in the same physical location. We were at the rural bunker of Dine, Drink, Travel, the Apocalypse bunker, but I didn't get there with all my recording gear, and it was too far from the hinterlands of far west Texas to go back and get it. We did this a couple nights ago, and we had some glitches. We tried to do it via Google Meet, and you kept getting frozen out, and I got this compression where everything I fed had a lisp. And unless our listeners are really into Daffy Duck, that audio was pretty awful.
So here's why I kept getting frozen out. I moved to an undisclosed location in Alabama to take a new job, and somehow my wife and children found the location of the secret bunker, and they came to visit me for Christmas, and then they used all of my internet bandwidth.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, in Alabama, the calendar year is 2004. High speed is just getting there. So they're going to be really, surprised when they find out about iPhones. That's all I can say. So, all right, Bill, the drink of the day is the French 75. So we've talked about this the other night, but the listeners didn't hear it. This drink, and I did not know this, and I've had many a French 75 in my day, is named after a World War II 75 millimeter artillery gun favored by the French army, which I didn't know. Apparently from a bartender, depending on the story you believe, either in Brooklyn or New Orleans. I will believe New Orleans. And we did this because we were recording New Year's Eve, and then that fell through. We were looking for a New Year's Eve drink with champagne, which this has in it. And we're now past that, but too bad we got plans. So here's the recipe, and then we'll talk about the variation you did and then the variation I did, and who this drink is for and who it's not for. So the recipe is an ounce of gin, half ounce of lemon juice, and a half ounce of simple syrup. All of that goes into a cocktail shaker, gets shaken like it owes you money, and then strained out. And then you top it off with about 3 ounces of champagne or another sparkling wine, and garnish with a lemon twist. That's the base recipe. Bill, how did you make yours? What gin, what sparkling wine?
So I used whatever sparkling wine was just available at the grocery store, which was probably a mistake. But I would argue that there were so many ingredients in this that a really high-quality sparkling wine or champagne would have gotten lost. My other real mistake was that I didn't make it with simple syrup. I tried to make it with muddled sugar cubes, and that resulted in it not being as sweet as it needed to be. The first time I made it, I didn't squeeze enough lemon juice. It was too gin forward. Not that gin is bad. I enjoy gin, but it was gin with some lemon juice and some sugar and some sparkling wine, and it just didn't work. The second time got better because I added a lot more lemon juice. But still, It is my second least favorite drink we have ever made on this show. When was it? Like episode 12 that we made the Smurf Barf? Was that episode 12?
Oh, where we let Chat GPT write our recipe, and there were graham cracker crumbs and blue carousel. Oh, that was a terrible drink.
Yeah, so this wasn't that bad,
yeah.
but it still wasn't good.
And I'm going to disagree with you. So the one I made the other night, I used New Amsterdam gin and a Francis Ford Coppola sparkling white wine. It turned out quite fine. New Amsterdam is my favorite baller on a budget gin. It's affordable, but it's high quality. And if you like a London dry gin but want to save a few bucks on one actually from London, particularly with the threat of tariffs looming over us in the coming month, New Amsterdam's pretty affordable. Tonight, so my comment on the audio we're not using is that the French 75 is like a dry martini's fruity, spritzy kid sister. And I still think that's a fair comparison. The flavors were a little simple. I'm not a champagne person anyway. I would prefer a French 75 to plain champagne. But tonight, because I wanted a little oomph, I added a little ginger juice. Ginger People makes a really strong ginger juice. So it's sort of like a champagne-y mule. And actually, I like this now. So I'm pretty sure a cocktail purist would look askance at this, but with a splash of a strong ginger juice, this is actually kind of nice.
All right. And to answer the question you actually originally asked me, I used Bombay Sapphire, and maybe I just used the wrong gin for the drink. Like maybe that's what the problem was.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's still a London dry. Like I would still think that would be up there. But I mean, the dominant flavor is going to be the wine you use, plus some lemon and the herbals in the gin.
Yeah, and I would have to go into my kitchen, but I used some $12 bottle of sparkling wine available at the Publix in an undisclosed location in Alabama. It was not a good sparkling wine.
So I made my wife one. There's a distillery outside of Dallas called Lockwood, and they make a hibiscus vodka. And by the way, if you use vodka instead of gin, it's called a French 76. Well, this is called the Lockwood 76. It's hibiscus vodka with the sparkling wine. They use rosé at the distillery. We didn't have that handy. Her version was better. So I would say this might be good exploring with a flavored vodka as well.
Okay. So I'm more of a vodka person than a gin person, and I would be willing to give that a shot.
Yeah, I think I'd rather just have a martini, to be honest. I'm not a champagne person, but if you want a champagne-y type, if you like champagne and you want to branch out, and maybe you've never had a fine cocktail before, you're a wine person that occasionally does a champagne, and you want to get into cocktails, I think this is a good gateway for the wine fan. But if you're a spirit fan, this might be a way to tolerate some champagne. So,
Yeah, fair. Well, speaking of good cocktails, John, should we talk about the cocktails that you enjoyed on your trip last summer?
Sure, let's do that.
All right. So you went to the Vdara, and before we go too far into this, what kind of trip was this, John?
So this was my wife and I. We both, Bill and I never fully disclose what our jobs are, but you're smart people. My wife and I both work a public service job that frequently allows us to travel in June or July, but makes traveling when our actual anniversary is in late August almost impossible. So we went to Vegas over July 4th week. We weren't there on the 4th, but it was that week. Just as an early getaway for our anniversary. So just the two of us, ditch the kids with the grandparents, get on a plane, and not be responsible for anything for 3 nights, 4 days, and just enjoy hanging out with each other. I'm lucky enough to be married to my best friend, and my wife's not a big gambler. For her, Vegas is about good meals and rest and relaxation. She likes pools sometimes. She likes people watching. She likes art. She likes food. Mostly she just likes not having to be responsible for human beings.
Also, and this is the part
That's
which
what it was.
befuddles the rest of us, she apparently likes you. Like, I think she
Go
just likes
figure.
going places with you, and none of us understand that.
Me either, but she does, and I'm thankful for it. So uh, we originally wanted to book Cosmo, but I was trying to book this with MGM. So City cards, you can use your thank you points from City to buy gift cards from MGM. And the original plan was to book at Cosmo, but Cosmo was not yet deep enough in the MGM ecosystem to take those gift cards. So we booked Vdara primarily because it connects to an indoor walkway to the Cosmopolitan, and it could scratch that Cosmo itch for my wife. That was the idea. Turns out every place at Vdara has a kitchenette, and my wife is not a big breakfast person. One of the things she does not like in Vegas is no matter how groggy and late I wake up, the first thing I need is coffee, and I need it within a half hour of waking up. She doesn't like me leaving the room without her, but she does not like getting drug out of bed and having to shower and get ready so we can go find coffee and breakfast. But by having a kitchenette in our room, and we took our own coffee maker, we took an AeroPress, and we were able to have coffee and breakfast in our room. We bought some bacon at Target, bought her some avocado spread, got a nice loaf of bread from Italy over at Park MGM. Really was a wonderful experience. She basically got waited on hand and foot every morning. I got to have survival coffee without having to go out and deal with humanity first thing in the morning. And our suite at Vdara actually had a fountain view. Now, not the best fountain view, right? But it had a fountain view. So at the end of the night, we could stare out our window and see the lights and the fountain dancing. Yeah, it was a lovely, lovely room.
Cool. So you've talked about a lovely room, and you've talked about the connection to the Cosmo, which is where you wanted to go, and you've talked about the ability to make breakfast. But out of all of those things, what do you think was the single most important reason that you wound up staying at the Vdara on this trip?
Well, I think, like I said, originally it was to be close to Cosmo, and I think the location may be the best thing Vdara has going for it because you do have covered indoor walkways to Bellagio and to Cosmo, and a very short outdoor walk into the Aria. So you have access to 3 casinos. Vdara does not have a casino itself. It's a quiet, small property, but you have access to 3 different MGM branded casinos. The other thing I liked about Vdara is that for those of you that play the My Vegas and My Konami games, if you want to cash in a complimentary free play, like I did the $150 free play, Aria's casino is the casino for Vdara. So I was able to use my points to get free gambling, and all in with credit card points and everything, I had a grand total of $500 worth of free play through various ways of getting free play. And it was very convenient to get to Aria, to use the food court there. So yeah, the location and proximity to those 3, like if you can't pick between Bellagio, Cosmo, and Aria, just stay at Vdara and you get the run of all 3.
So that's actually a really fair point, and the location there is phenomenal. So, John, when you and I plan trips to Vegas, we plan them around meals, and we'll talk about that at the end of this podcast. The trip we've got planned in, I think I leave 2 weeks from today. But what were the highlight meals for you on this trip to the Vdara?
So believe it or not, and so, I call myself the baller on a budget. I'm willing to spend money, but I'm always looking for the best value. I don't want to call my wife cheap because I want her to still like me after she hears the podcast. So let's call her frugal. My wife she doesn't just want baller on a budget. She mostly wants the budget. But we were able to find some compromise meals. We did the cocktail hour at a couple of places. China Poblano, which is a Jose Andres restaurant in the Cosmo. We did that. They have these gorgeous cloud margaritas that are truly phenomenal. They have Chinese and Mexican and fusion food. We did that for a meal. We did a happy hour over at Flights, which is in the Miracle Mile. But honestly, the best bite of food we had to be the sandwiches at Lardo in the food hall at Cosmo. And Bill, I know, because you are our high roller, formerly of the High Plains, that you like a high-end meal and you hear sandwich and you're thinking Subway. Lardo is not Subway. It is truly elevated gourmet sandwiches. I gotta say, our first trip to Vegas together, my wife and I, we ate at Earl of Sandwich in Miracle Mile. They always have a crowd, and it was fine. But hear me, listeners, if you are thinking about going to Earl of Sandwich, just go across the street on that sky bridge, walk into Cosmo, and go find Lardo. They are simply beautiful sandwiches at an affordable price point. Not cheap. It's not the $5 foot long, but affordable sandwiches with superb ingredients, incredible bread. Honestly, even though it was just a sandwich, it was the best bite of food I had that trip. The porchetta in particular.
That is deeply impressive, right? Because like I've had good sandwiches, but nothing that would be a highlight of a trip, particularly a trip to Vegas. So it sounds like you had a really good time, but any trip, there's missed opportunities. So what is it you think you would do differently next time if you had basically the same trip to book again?
Sure. So we rolled in to do cocktail hour at the Cosmo, which I hope MGM does not take away from Cosmo now that they're in the MGM ecosystem. Some of the places we wanted to go check out for cocktail hour, we thought we'd just be able to walk into at 3 p.m. Turns out they were, like other people know that cocktail hour is a thing. So you might want to consider doing reservations. Also, I think we should have booked at least one sit-down meal for this trip. And we missed out on some entertainment opportunities. So our big entertainment was the piano show, dueling pianos at New York, which is always a blast. I didn't realize that the Museum of Illusion, located between Cosmo and the shops at Crystal, I didn't realize how cool that looks. So if we stay at Vdara again in the future, which we might this coming summer, I think we do the Museum of Illusions, and we definitely find a place to do a nice sit-down dinner somewhere.
So, I'm always in favor of the sit-down dinner, but it sounds like you had a fantastic trip. Are there any last notes you want to make before we move on to the Vegas news?
Yeah, just to say that do keep in mind with Vdara, you do not have a casino on the property. It is a little bit of a walk to other things. So if you are a center of the action kind of person, Vdara is not for you. And I would not go there for a guy's trip. Like with you and I and whichever of our friends we can drag, I wouldn't recommend this for that. But for a quiet couples getaway, yeah, Vdara is your place.
Okay. Well, then that is a place I will look forward to trying if I can ever get Mrs. Bill to go back to Vegas with me sometime.
I think she would dig it.
I think she probably would. Well, because my wife tends to like the same things that your wife likes, right? So cool. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, they're very similar. Yours is just taller.
Also, mine likes me, and I'm into girls who like me because it turns out that's a really specific population.
Just her as near as we can figure.
Yeah, you know what? That's really all I can keep up with is the one girl.
Hey, yeah. Why disappoint two women?
I love you too, John.
Yeah.
So
this is why I've never cheated because
you can't because there are no opportunities.
And even if there were, why disappoint more than one woman?
Oh, so let's talk for a minute about Vegas news, because one of the things we try to bring our listeners every podcast is the news about what's going on in Vegas. And I guess I will start. So I've got a review on the Dine Drink Vegas YouTube channel about strip steak by Michael Mina down at the Mandalay Bay. And it was really, really good. But one of the things I was surprised by was the fact that it really wasn't busy even on a holiday weekend. But Michael Mina has just opened his 6th location on the Vegas Strip, all of which are at MGM properties. It's a new location of his bourbon steak concept, not the fancy like Applebee's on a date night bourbon street steak, but actual bourbon steak. It is at the Four Seasons, which is physically attached to the Mandalay Bay, downstairs from Strip Steak. He did an interview with Vegas food writer and podcaster Al Mancini explaining the similarities and differences, and talked a little bit about the fact that Gordon Ramsay actually has 7 restaurants on the Las Vegas Strip. So on the one hand, I loved his restaurant upstairs, but on the other hand, at what point do you have too many restaurants for the celebrity chef to really be effectively involved in the business, John?
Or not just the number of restaurants, but having 2 steakhouses in that close a proximity. So in the interview that he did with Al Mancini, he talks about how that Strip Steak is located right off the casino floor, and it's really the first thing you see when you come back from the convention center at Mandalay going towards the casino. It's an open air concept. You could see the whole property, and it's a different vibe. He said he wanted something that was more intimate. He wanted something more locals accessible. Now, you and I don't drive when we go to Vegas. We are believers in rideshare.
Oh, dear Lord, no. That's a terrible idea.
But apparently for a local, coming to Mandalay, it's easier to come in through Four Seasons than anywhere else. So he wanted a place that was accessible to locals, accessible to the Four Seasons guest, a little more intimate, a little more secluded, and a slightly different menu. They said certain items like the duck fat fries will be on both, but other things will be different. The cuts of beef will be different. And he seemed pretty confident that he could sustain it. And they did point out in the interview, and I can't remember the chef's name, but Chef Mina's mentor ran a restaurant at this particular location for 25 years. So there have been 2 steakhouses a floor apart from each other. All that's changing is now they're both going to be run by the same restaurant group. So I guess there's a market for 2.
Sure. Well, and the Four Seasons crowd and the Mandalay Bay crowd are not the same people. So that makes sense. But still, if you're on the south end of the strip and you're looking for a nice steak, that is probably the same group of people. So I wish Chef all the best of luck because his restaurants are phenomenal. I'm just not convinced it works out. Well, John, what else is going on in the Vegas news?
So, former Cosmo Burger joint, speaking of one of the places Lori and I had looked forward to eating at and didn't get to because it had just closed, Holstein's, well, they have found their future home. They are currently renovating a space down in the Arts District off downtown. It'll be opening soon. And this is a one more in a growing list of serious restaurants in a downtown neighborhood that not that long ago was a place you really would not want to go as a tourist. So it sounds like the Arts District is up and coming. Now, there's still only one hotel down there that's Todd English's joint. So it's still not a mecca for people to stay, but apparently they've got an audience with locals, and there's a lot to see and do. Any interest in the Arts District, Bill?
So, yes, but it's so I don't think about Vegas as a local does. I think about it as a tourist does. And as a tourist, that's a terrible location because you've got to want to specifically go there. It's not a place that you stumble across. So there, and I get it. There's 2 million people in Vegas. There's plenty of locals. I'm hoping it works. I want to go. I'm curious about the strategy, though, of having to plan a specific trip.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I will say it is walkable from the Fremont Street experience. It's just between the Arts District and Fremont, there's a couple of sketchy blocks that most tourists would not feel comfortable with. Now, you and I have both been some seedy places, and we're big, burly Texas boys. Like, we'd be fine walking it. And I do plan to drag you down there next trip, and we'll get to that at the end of the episode. I don't think I want to walk it particularly, but yeah, I don't think they're ever going. I don't think that neighborhood's ever going to be a big tourist destination. I think that is going to be primarily locals, but they have my attention enough that our next trip we're going to go check it out.
All right. Well, as long as I can have a cocktail before we leave, because I think that is my rule, right?
And we'll get to that plan later on.
Speaking of cocktails, country music star Jason Aldean, who is somebody I enjoyed listening to, has a new country music restaurant which opened up last month just in time for NFR, National Finals Rodeo. This is ultimately coming from Eater Las Vegas. And on the one hand, it sounds like a lot of fun. And also, folks, if you've never been to NFR, if you've never been to National Finals Rodeo, it is a phenomenal weekend to be in Vegas. But it's a weekend which is dominated by country music fans. The other 51 weekends a year are not. And much as I wondered about Michael Mina's strategy of opening 6 restaurants, I wonder about the strategy of opening a celebrity restaurant where the celebrity's not a cook and won't usually be there, and how well that works out for the 51 weeks a year that aren't NFR.
And I hear you, but by the same token, we're the two guys that really loved Emmitt Smith's Steakhouse. And what does Emmett know about cooking steak? So I'm okay with the non-chef celebrity running a place. My bigger thought is this is not very far. Even if you're slow, this is a 10-minute walk from Blake Shelton's Old Red, which is 4 stories of country western. They do have both kinds of music, country and western. So you're very close to a bigger honky tonk. And I'm not sure about the location. This is between the Shops at Crystal and Cosmo again, and that new thing they put there in City Center. I do think there's an appetite for country music on the Strip. Lord knows I love Gillies and T.I. because where else am I going to get a $2 Lone Star in the state of Nevada? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether there's enough appetite for this particular place, especially because the PBR bull riding restaurant and bar just across the street at Miracle Mile just went out of business. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Strip is big enough for both Blake Shelton and Jason Aldean.
You know what? I like the music from the both of them, so I hope they are both successful.
Yeah, I'm waiting on the Robert Earl Keen Texas barbecue and honky tonk. That's what I want. So
yeah, I will give my barbecue dissertation on another episode. So what else is going on, John?
So Italy at Park MGM is going to expand. They're going to add more seating. Another Italian spritz-heavy sports bar. So there's already an Aperol bar for your Aperol spritzes, but now they're going to mix spritzes and sports. By the way, the lisp problem on the last recording that I had to dump, spritz was a hilarious word. And they're adding, believe it or not, Bill, I know, sit down, more pizza at Italy, this time deep dish. Bill, you're muted. I don't know. You're muted. You're shrugging, but. All right. While Bill figures out the audio, yep, still muted. Let's go ahead and move on. Can you hear me? Okay. I cannot hear you. That is so weird. All right. So we'll see how this turns out in the mix. Because I have completely lost Bill's audio, although I could see him struggling frantically with his microphone, which listeners is hilarious. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's better.
But I blame whichever political candidate any individual viewer doesn't happen to like.
Okay, that'll work. So we're moving on to another Scott from Vital Vegas story, because we steal a lot of things from Scott. He reported, not today, which is what it says on the run sheet, but several days ago, the first time we attempted to do this, that the A's president of baseball operations is on the way out the door, and Bally's is hurting for cash to maintain its Chicago casino, which Scott says is proof that the project at the former Tropicana is doomed. I'm a little dubious because Scott seems to have it out for this project. I can't tell if Bill is thinking or if he's muted. Yeah, I cannot hear Bill again. Okay. So ditch the mic, buddy. Struggling. Oh man, maybe we have to go video because I really want our listeners to see Bill epically struggling with this microphone. Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I am. Are you?
Yeah, I got you. All right,
All
loud and
right.
clear. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, no, this is the podcast that's meant to never happen. And honestly, John, at this point, I think we leave in the dang audio so that all like 36 of our listeners somehow enjoy the fact that we can't do stuff.
Yeah. So do you remember when you texted me about that particular mic when I said the specs look good? We'll see about durability.
Yeah, you know what? I assumed it would make it like 20 minutes.
Yeah. So we'll talk after the show about, I recommend this one that I'm using. Good mic.
Yeah, except that
So,
I can't get to the city you're at, and it would be super awkward for us to use the same mic.
well, Amazon has a return policy and they sell this one. So we could work this out. All right. Anyway, moving on while you compose yourself. Well, no, I want your input on this. Bill, does the A Stadium happen at Tropicana? What do you think?
So I think it does because I don't think the Tropicana stops operations until there's a really specific reason not to do. Now, even if for some reason it doesn't happen there, it still happens in Vegas because it looks to me like Major League Baseball is 100% committed to making this happen in Las Vegas. But yeah, like you say,
I agree.
I don't know. I think it happens there. What I'm trying to avoid is the intellectual bias, though, of the fact that I want it to happen there because that would be great for me and my trips.
Yeah, me too. The idea of being able to stay at New York, and just go across that skywalk into a baseball stadium and catch a game. Like that's the thing I want. Now, if it happens over by Rio or some other location, fine. But I hope it does happen at Tropicana. And I'm a big fan of Scott at Vital Vegas. A lot of people online aren't. He has a hate club for whatever reason. I think the guy's funny. He definitely gets the scoop on news stories. I just think in this case, he's got it out for this project. And I think he's being a little negative here.
I think he probably is. One of the other things, though, that I'm curious about in Vegas, and it's another one of the stories from Scott and Vital Vegas, is the story about Venetian joining the world of Hyatt. And he says this is bad for fellow Hyatt partner Rio. Now, you and I disagree on this. I actually think it is bad for the Rio because if what I want is to earn Hyatt points, then and the Rio's the only partner, then I book the Rio. But if I want to earn Hyatt points and I've got an option like the Venetian, I do that. Why don't you think this is actually bad for them?
I think because the Rio and the Venetian are aiming at two different customers. And Hyatt has a pretty wide portfolio as it is. And there's a lot of places you could stay at to get Hyatt points. I don't think the Rio and the Venetian cannibalize each other for Hyatt in the same way that the Hilton Alara is not very far from the Hilton Waldorf Astoria, and they're not cannibalizing each other either. It's a big enough reward system to accommodate different types of travelers, different types of trips. And I think if you're looking for scrappy hotel on the rebound that's trying to reclaim its former glory at a lower price point, you're going to go to Rio. If you want big luxury, you're going to go to Venetian. I don't think you're really losing sleep picking between the two. And your microphone still does not work. That's hilarious that you plugged it back in. All right. You were committed.
And I
still built. There you are.
Yeah. All right. So this is the dang podcast that's meant to never happen. And I'm just as happy that none of our listeners can see the various reactions I have right now. And I'm going to send this blankety blankin blank 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 microphone back to blankin Amazon blanket because I have thoughts right now. But because I am a productive human being, I collect travel points. I collect them with Hilton and I collect them with, Lord forgive me, American Airlines. And So I can imagine somebody who's collecting Hyatt points who would otherwise have booked the Rio just because they care more about the Hyatt points, and that guy's going to book somewhere else. That guy is now booking at the Venetian.
Yeah, maybe, but I at the end of the day, I don't think it's that big a hit to the Rio. I really don't. And I could be wrong.
Maybe. All right.
I mean, let's put it this way. MGM points are MGM points. I don't think the existence of Bellagio is what's hurting Excalibur.
Yeah. Well, in other news from Scott in Vital Vegas, he's reporting a class action suit against the gaming firm IGT and some of the casinos that have the Wheel of Fortune slots, which I love. Hey, John, you can win a lot of money on the Wheel of Fortune slots at the Las Vegas airport, right?
Apparently you can. I cannot. Apparently you can.
I can, and I was kind and gracious to you and our buddy Mike when I got back on the plane after it happened. But the class action suit says, and it's against IGT and MGM and Bally's and Penn and a lot of the other casino groups. They claim that the game's mechanics are rigged by the computer, which is the well-duh observation. But the basis of the claim is that the slots on the Wheel of Fortune are all the same size, so each of the slots should have the same chance of winning. What's your take on this story?
So specifically, they're talking about once you've triggered the bonus wheel.
You're right.
So the plaintiffs acknowledge that on every spin, you are at the mercy of the random number generator. But somehow they think that the fact that the bonus wheel has even looking slices of bonus pie is a promise of truly even odds of winning a prize. But I think anybody that has spent 5 minutes learning how Vegas slot machines works knows that not only is every spin governed by the random number generator, when you trigger a bonus, if it's Wheel of Fortune and you're going to spin a wheel, or hot stuff and you're going to spin a wheel, or if it's dancing drums and you have to pick the little medallions to find the foo babies, or whatever it is, the random number generator has already predetermined the outcome of your bonus round the way it determines every spin. There is not an implied even odds in the bonus round. The lawsuit hangs on the idea that somehow that's what they're promising, and I just don't think that's true.
I am going to be shocked if this doesn't get summarily dismissed.
Yeah, I agree. If you're gambling, you should know the odds are on the house, and if it's a slot machine or even a video poker machine, the random number generator rules. Now, video poker is a little bit different because there are some odds at play there. But still, basically, if you were thinking you were getting an even 1 in 20 chance of that jackpot when you land that Wheel of Fortune, I don't know if it's 20 spots on the wheel, whatever it is. If you really thought that was dead even odds, I'd like to talk to you about some beachside real estate in Hobbs, New Mexico, because I can make you a deal, buddy.
Yeah. So speaking of the odds always being in the house's favor, MGM has just posted record earnings, and in spite of that is hiking resort fees again, and they're hiking parking rates. And I hate with the burning passion of 1,000 suns the obscene resort fees at most Vegas resort, hotels. But I know you've got a little bit of a different take on this. So, John, talk to us about your thoughts on MGM hiking resort fees and parking rates in spite of their record profits.
So here's the deal, and I'm going to separate the two because parking, I kind of hate paying for parking too. Because odds are you're going to make money off me when I'm in your building. Of course, I never drive in Vegas anyway. I don't like paid parking when I'm staying at a hotel or if I'm going to dinner at a hotel. I think there should be validation. You should get those waived off. That's a side issue. I'm not a fan of that. But when it comes to resort fees, here's the deal. The resort fees exist because they are taxed differently than the hotel fee. And by making it into a resort fee, both the hotel operator and the customer get a lower tax rate. So I know when I book a Vegas hotel, I look at that per night, and then I go look at what is the resort fee, and I add the two together. Okay. And with new federal laws, a lot of people are on the internet going, well, they just outlawed resort fees. No, they didn't. Don't read the headline, read the whole news story, people. That's how we wind up in the situation we're in as a country sometimes, because people are like, I saw a headline. No, read the story. Keep going. Resort fees are not outlawed. They have to be more upfront with the resort fee pricing. But here's my deal. People complain all day long about the resort fee. There are random Tuesdays in April where the Bellagio with resort fees is cheaper than a La Quinta in Amarillo, Texas. So when everybody complains about price gouging in Vegas because of resort fees, take a breath, price some other travel destinations, and realize that even with the resort fees, Las Vegas hotels really are a bargain, because I don't know about anybody else, but between the Vegas Strip and the La Quinta in Amarillo, I'm going to Vegas.
So, sure, Vegas is better, even if you do account for the presence of the Big Texan in Amarillo. But if it's something you've got to pay, I just resent it not being called part of the price.
Right. And I get that, but have you been on the MGM website in the last week since they've adjusted to the new federal laws? Like, it's way more clear now, your per night price with the fee. So I think you're getting a better picture. And so to me, I'm not as bothered by that. If you're keeping your nightly rate down and your increases are going to the resort fee, you're doing yourself and me a favor, because the tax rate's lower on the resort fee anyway, and I got to pay taxes. I'm not as worked up on that because, granted, when I'm in Vegas, I don't do math well, which is why I don't play blackjack. But when I'm planning for Vegas, my math brain is working just fine. And I'm not worked up over this.
Okay, that makes some sense. Speaking of your math brain, what do you think about the price of the new drinks menu over at Caesars?
So here's the deal. Jacob's Life in Vegas put out a little video, and you could pause that video and look at the lobby bar. This is not the pool bar. This is not the bar inside of a great restaurant where you're going to get a world-class meal. This is the lobby bar. Their mule is $25. And Bill, this is not a mule with some special vodka that was carried in, smuggled by some Russian sleeper cell that was carefully crafted by a babushka growing potatoes in a forbidden field somewhere. This is Tito's and Fever Tree for $25. I can walk across the street to the ABC store and get a bottle of Tito's and a 4-pack of Fever Tree for $25. The resort fee, I can live with that. The $25 Tito's mule, no, sir.
Yeah.
Naughty Caesars, no.
No, that is even more obscene. So normally a lot of restaurants will mark up their product costs 3 times. If you're in Vegas, maybe 5 or 6 times. But there are 17.98 1.5 ounce shots in a 750 milliliter gallon of vodka. That means they are charging 18 times the price of the vodka for a single drink. That is by any measure obscene.
Yeah, and this is why our next guy's trip is downtown.
Yeah.
It's precisely this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the greed in Vegas, but there is actually some good news. The Venetian Hotel just gave their full-time workers a $1,250 holiday bonus. And for part-time workers, they gave a prorated bonus. And I think that's it's extraordinarily generous, but B, it's a good business move, because workers who know that you're going to share the wealth are more likely to stick with you. What do you think about this news, John?
I think that is the right thing to do. We're seeing that these companies that own these Vegas casinos are making record profit, and I'm all for that. I'm not against anybody making money. I do think these operators ought to make sure they take care of the people that make it possible. It is not the CEO who makes your trip to Vegas great. It's the bellhop, it's the front desk clerk, it's housekeeping, it's the waiter, it's the bartender, it's the line cook. And it is wonderful to see that, it's the pit boss, the dealer. It is so wonderful to see a resort that is paying cold hard cash as a thank you to the people that make Vegas the best place to go. So I'm all for this. I hope more casino operators will join suit, like people like Virgin who are dealing with striking workers. Well, maybe not Virgin because nobody goes there, so they may not have the money. But if you're one of these casinos that's raking in the big bucks, take care of your workers because they're the ones that are taking care of us, and we, the public, are the ones who are paying the bill. So I'm excited by this.
I am too. And one last note, folks, always tip the people who help you in Vegas. Well, we have one last news story before we move on to a preview of our next trip. And it's in the category of news we missed, but the team behind Herbs and Rye just opened a new brunch spot. It's called Middle Child. It's located 1.4 miles east of the Flamingo. And we have talked about how much stuff costs in Vegas, but they've got a lobster Benedict, which is only $35. And I get it that $35 is a lot of money for breakfast. It's not a lot of money for a lobster dish. And they've got a lot of other main dishes in the $15 to $30 range. So, John, is that a place that you think we try anytime soon?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about our next trip in the moment. I'll talk about what I have booked for our Sunday brunch. I am playing around with moving our Sunday brunch reservation, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if we don't do it this trip, I think at some point we do. You and I both enjoyed Herbs and Rye. I want to get over to Cleaver. These are restaurants that prove that getting off strip, you could save a few bucks but not lose quality. And I love brunch. Brunch on the strip can cost big bucks. So I love the idea. Yeah. If you're with a group, now granted, if you're by yourself, by the time you pay for the Uber there and back, you might as well eat at that hotel restaurant. Right. But if you're in a big group and you're splitting an Uber, if you're with 4 or 5 people, yeah, get off the strip and try some different places. Even though, we're all tourists and we want convenience, Vegas is a food city. And there's a ton of great things out there, and I definitely want to check this one out. So with that said, Bill, let's tell the listeners where we're staying in our January trip.
So while I may be the leader in the luxury lounge, it turns out that the realities of having just moved a few months ago mean that I can't afford the nice stuff right now. And also, I enjoy downtown Las Vegas, so we are staying at the Plaza because the Plaza is one of the 2 great spots in downtown, along with El Cortez, which has incredibly friendly gambling rules. But the hotel at El Cortez just isn't that nice, and you've sold me on the Plaza being nice, so we're going to give a shot to the Plaza.
Yeah, and please don't misunderstand. The Plaza is not a luxury place.
No.
The most luxurious place downtown is Circa. But it's, especially the updated deluxe rooms. Very clean, new furniture, well-maintained. The deluxe rooms, not bad. They're showing their age a little bit. I think the Plaza, you get what you pay for, and I'm a fan of their management. On the corner of Main Street is a podcast put out by their general manager, Jonathan Jossel. They have an affiliation with Oscar Goodman and his wife, Carolyn. That's obviously who Oscars is named for. I like the character and the history of the Plaza. Just a cool vibe, a cool place, and one of my favorite places to hang out in Vegas. So why not stay there? So we know where we're staying. Bill, let's talk about your dinner plans for the first night.
So on the first night, and I don't have enough money to do everything I want to do all the time, but I can afford one nice meal. So me and my buddy Mike are going to actually go down to the strip and eat at Le Cirque. And it's going to be an expensive meal, but it is so worth it because the service there is just exquisite. I went to have a drink once at their bar. I hadn't eaten there in a year. My waiter saw me in passing, remembered me, and brought me free chocolates. Like, Le Cirque is that kind of place. And it is time. I am due for a meal, and I am 100% going to go enjoy that.
Yeah, and while you and Mike are doing that, I can't afford that particular meal. So in true baller on a budget fashion, I thought, well, what can I do with my time while they're having that French meal? So I got on the My Konami app, and I cashed in a few free plays. So I've got a $25 free play at Bellagio, $25 at Park MGM, and $25 at the Aria. And then I also cashed in a voucher, $10 off a $20 meal at Posh Burger at the Aria. So while you guys are eating on the high end of the horse, okay, not really horse, although French restaurant, maybe horse,
You
I
never
don't
know.
know. I'll be doing a little bit of free gambling and grabbing myself a Posh Burger and just being a menace on the strip. So it's going to be a good first night.
It is going to be a good first night. Also, I think you should go with us to Le Cirque because you've never been there before and you've certainly never had any unfortunate incidents, have you?
No, yeah, I've been to Le Cirque twice. And on one particular trip, I lost a fight with Gravity in the men's room. And when Gravity finally let me off the floor, the very sweet lady working the desk informed me that my evening at Le Cirque had come to an end. And I asked if I could go in to tell my dining companions that I would not be making it to the dessert course. She said, I'm sure they will figure it out. And then two gentlemen in maroon blazers offered to help me find my room if I needed help. And they stayed a respectful few paces behind me as I made my way to the room where my evening did in fact come to an end. And then on my second trip to Le Cirque, they apparently have some note-taking system because it was the same hostess, and she looked at our party and she looked at her screen and she giggled and looked at me and said, "Welcome back to Le Cirque. I hope you find dessert enjoyable." So you got to love customer service like that. It's a beautiful place. It's just I have the choice of eating at Le Cirque or having a gambling payroll, and we're going to be downtown, so I need some gambling money.
No, that is fair. Well, and also the odds on gambling downtown are phenomenal, so you want to do it. Now, I'm also looking forward to the rest of our meals. For one thing, the pizza in downtown is phenomenal, and I love pizza by the
Yes.
slice. What other meals? And I told you to just kind of run with it. What other meals do we have planned for this trip, John?
So yeah, probably Saturday morning we'll head down to Pink Donuts to get a cronut, which is a croissant donut hybrid that I've been wanting to try. I will say the coffee bar at the Plaza is phenomenal. We have bought Royal Pub Crawl tickets. So if you've never done that before, for a fixed price, and it varies, you could buy from their website or on Groupon, you get 5 drinks. All of them are at Derek Stevens Properties downtown. So the first 2 are at Circa. Then you go over to Prohibition Bar at the Golden Gate. And then you end your night at Long Bar and then Bar Canada at the Deep. 5 stops. At every stop, when the bartenders check you in, you get a card for a poker hand. You could win free tickets to Circa. You could win a drink voucher for the following night, which is why you don't want to do this on your last night, besides the fact that you don't want to go on a pub crawl before you got to get up in the morning and face the airport. But you could win prizes for your next day. So the plan is we'll go to our first couple of stops, and then we're going to get in a car in a not one we're driving, clearly. Ooh. We'll get in an Uber or Lyft, and we're going to go check out the Arts District, walk around a while, and eat dinner at Esther's Kitchen. Esther's Kitchen is James Tree's restaurant in downtown in the Arts District. James Tree is a James Beard award-winning chef. And here's why I want to do this. So if you're listening to this, you like Vegas podcast. If you listen to Food and Loathing in Las Vegas, they interview chefs all the time. Not everybody wants to hear about the inner workings of kitchens. So that podcast may or may not be for you, depending on whether or not you want to hear somebody talk about why their menu is the way it is or how they got into the hospitality industry. I'm a nerd for that kind of thing. But they always ask chefs and restaurant owners, hey, when you're hanging out on an off night, or hey, when you have guests come into Vegas and you want to take them someplace you don't work, where do you take them? 9 times out of 10, the answer is Esther's Kitchen. So I have been dying to try this place for a while. So that's what we're going to do on Saturday night for a little high-end locals' favorite Italian food. So Bill, how do you feel about Italian after your 10th slice of pizza?
I am here for it because Italian, whatever, I've eaten at some phenomenal Italian spots in Vegas. I want to try it also at high-end Italian restaurants. There are enough choices to make it worth it anyway. So yeah, no, I am 100% excited about that meal.
Yeah, and then when we get back, we'll go over to the D and hit up the last two bars on our pub crawl. And I'm imagining by that point, we'll probably go play a few hands at a table somewhere or throw a 20 in a video poker machine somewhere and then toddle off to bed. The next morning, I have brunch booked at 7th and Carson, which is one Vegas restaurant of the year. It's in Fremont East. It's a 5-minute walk from the Plaza, but it's a local's favorite. Again, we may change this out in order to head over to Middle Child because that's the new hotness in brunch. But Bill, I don't think you've ever been in 7th and Carson. I got to tell you, that is some comforting home cooking right in the heart of all the craziness.
No, I am super excited about that. I trust your judgment, John, and I'm looking forward to the places where we're going to eat.
And then Sunday night, you did have a hand in picking Sunday night because we went back and forth, and it wouldn't be a guy's trip without a steakhouse. Bill, what steakhouse did we settle on?
I mean, obviously, if you're going to stay downtown, we've got to go to Oscar's. I still think one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had is when I was in Oscar's and I was filming for the Dine Drink Vegas YouTube channel. I'm like, that looks a lot like Oscar Goodman, and son of a gun, it was. So I went up and introduced myself, and he didn't even have me rubbed out by one of his, former clients. So cool. No, we are going to Oscar's, which is, I think, just amazing. I am looking forward to that trip.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's a lot of great steakhouses in Vegas. But Oscar's is special to me because it just screams Las Vegas. I won't say it's the best steak I've had in Vegas. I would say it's top 5 in every possible category, food, service, all of that. It may not be number 1 in any category, but it's top 5 in every category. But it's got a cool factor because Mayor Goodman's paraphernalia is all over the place. News clippings, the statue of him with Tony Spilaccio. The dome, you're looking straight down the Fremont Street experience. The dining room used to be the pool of the Plaza. I mean, it's just a cool experience. And listeners, if you've been to Vegas, but you've never been to Oscar's, I think Oscar's and Top of Binion's are 2 steakhouses every Vegas fan has to do at least once. Even if it doesn't wind up being your favorite, you got to try it at least once.
You do have to give it a shot. One of the other things I've got to give a shot, John, is another drink because mine is empty, and that makes me sad. Does that mean we should wrap it up before we have yet more audio problems?
I guess we should. So let's go ahead and wind this down. Bill, in a moment, I'm going to let everybody find out where they can follow Dine Drink Travel and Dine Drink Vegas on social media. But I am Dine Drink John on X, Twitter, whatever Elon's calling it this week, and would be happy to have a conversation with you. Bill, where can they find our content?
You can find us on Dine Drink Vegas on YouTube. Also on YouTube, you can find us at Dine Drink Travel, and you can find us on all of the social media platforms, including Elon Musk's favorite platform at Dine Drink Travel.
Yeah, I think, are you up on Blue Sky yet?
I am not. Should I be?
We might head to Blue Sky. That's where all the journalists are going, and those lowlifes like to drink and party. So,
as do I.
Yes. All right. With that said, we appreciate that you listened. If you enjoyed this podcast and you've got a Vegas loving friend, please share with them so they can be our lucky 17th listener. We're so glad you tuned in. And remember, whatever you're doing or wherever you're going, happy travels.